based off of your feelings now? Is that what you're saying?
This is what I told Brent. I said, if you feel like the time is right, I don't want you to not try because you think I'll deny you. I feel like I told you.
Hey guys, and welcome back to Little Blair Book. You know what time it is. Talking to you guys, obviously, about Married at First Sight. We're dealing with Brett and Olivia. Olivia calls out Brett on his sarcasm. Guys, if you're new to the channel, make sure you like, share, subscribe, click on the bell button for notification of the uploads. And for those of you who are returnees, well, you already know the mineral song. You got the minerals, you got the minerals. Alright, cool. Let's get into the video. So, we're here talking obviously about Brett and Olivia. And I think, obviously, watching them over the past few weeks, there has been this constant narrative and fight between Brett and Olivia over, for instance, the housing, finances, and now obviously as well kids, which we saw in the very beginning of the episode season as well, and that's obviously come now full circle and round. So there was a conversation with Dr. Viviana where Brett and Olivia were talking, and I think right from the very jump we get I call it setting the tone for the rest of the conversation. I knew the conversation was going to be a certain way the moment the tone was set. How was it set? It was set when Olivia was answering a question and she said,
so what about it?
I think it would be a little bit easier. Don't look at me like that.
Okay.
And you can see the grimace, or you can see the smile of Dr. Viviana instantly evaporate. And one of the things that I've noticed about Brett, and I think I've mentioned this in my other reviews as well, is the use of sarcasm for defense. And instead of actually being open to deeper conversations, instead of going deeper into himself and revealing more of himself, he uses sarcasm as a defense mechanism. But now the sarcasm goes beyond just what he says, it goes into also his body language. So the very face that she's talking about, we've seen it several times. Okay, and that face is made consistently throughout conversations with Olivia and himself. Now, I believe that both of them can be some way problematic, but I definitely believe that Brett has the brunt and the weight to carry. And the reason why is because whenever that Olivia was talking, he would turn his head to the side and be looking at her and again, I believe he's taking the conversation seriously, but it's what he's showing outwardly, okay? The body language that he's showing to Olivia isn't one that I actually understand what you're saying. I'm here to agree, I'm here to move with you, I'm here to grow with you, I'm here to build with you, but rather it's of one that is about about making sure that he can't go too deep, because that would mean being vulnerable, okay? Being vulnerable means exposing oneself and not being in control of the narrative.
I think if Brett didn't own his house, it wouldn't be an issue.
Oh, I'm so irresponsible.
And I believe that's absolutely true. But he owns his home. You know what I mean? It's like I get what you're saying, Olivia, but he owns his home. You know, and so unfortunately, you know, this is something that's going to have to be worked out. I don't know what the absolute solution is. I mean, he's worked hard to get that home, and you know, I know he won't want to give it up, and I don't think we should be asking to give up. What I do believe, though, is that they're going to have to live in one house. They're going to have to find a way to get that house. Now, obviously, Olivia doesn't want to move, and that's because that's dependent upon the fact that her workplace is a certain distance away if she moves to where he lives. But the truth of the matter is, this is what relationships are. They are compromise, okay? When you want to get married at first sight, you didn't get married so the person would be an addition to you. You married to become one. And I think that's where the difference comes in. If you're thinking you're getting married to have a +1, you're going to miss it out. Marriage is about two becoming one, which means we are merging ideas, merging thoughts, merging processes, and trying to become as a single unit, rather than becoming two individuals who try to operate on their own ideas, thoughts, processes. We're trying to think alike so that we can become a vessel that allows us to be able to complete the tasks and achievements and the goals that we have set for ourselves. Now, this housing situation, I hear her point. Had he been renting, he would have moved wherever she would have moved, more than likely, right? Because it wouldn't have been a problem because of renting. But he's not renting. And this is why I said it was a problem when she didn't own her home in the first place. Now that becomes a shield for having to yield to that particular situation, right? She's having to now yield to that situation. This is where, again, you know, where relationships are very difficult, especially when you have two very strong characters on certain ideas and thoughts, because now neither of them want to give in.
I think if Brett didn't own his house, it wouldn't be an issue.
Oh, I'm so irresponsible.
Right? And I'm not saying either or, but I do understand the fact that he owns his home, he's worked hard to get it. He's not going to want to move. She too, I get it. She's far from work, etc., etc. She doesn't want to move, right? And I think Dr. Vimyar gave a sensible addition by saying, you know what, in the future you guys can put something together and make your own home. What I would say, and I have to agree with Brett here, is that it's not a question for later. Like, where we're going to stay, where we're going to live, is not a question for later. And the reason why I say it's not a question for later right now is because number one, they married. Okay, and number two, as well, their lives now are no longer being separate. They're now together. So that means now we have to think about this now. Okay, similar to the kids situation. If you didn't want kids at the beginning, why was I matched with you? Because I want kids. Now I have to bank on the idea that you would change your mind. Now and this is why married at first sight can be very difficult, because you're trusting experts that they will get this right. And I'm gonna go back to this, but the experts, what Dr. Viviana said was like, she was basically saying, and I'll quote later on, but she was basically saying,
I get the sense when we discussed this when I first met you, that this was under the right circumstances, under healthy circumstances, a love.
Well, sis, that means she didn't say it outright, which means she shouldn't have been matched with my boy, Brett. I'm not saying my boy because he ain't my boy like that. But she shouldn't have been matched with Brett then, because he wanted kids. That's a huge, that is big. Like, no, if you don't want kids, but I want kids, that is huge. That is so big. I'm telling you, that is massive. And so, for real, like, it's something that can't be waiting until we finish the 8 weeks. No, this needs to be done now, because we need to know what direction we're trying to go in. Do you get what I'm saying? But I do understand the point that, there needs to be more time getting to know each other. Now, the reason why there hasn't been much time getting to know each other is because of Brett. His own shortcomings are what's causing this. Every time he goes into sarcasm mode, what he's saying is, I'm not going to allow you to get to know me on a deeper level.
I think if Brett didn't own his house, it wouldn't be an issue.
Oh, I'm so irresponsible.
Therefore, you can't build intimacy with that individual person because they're consistently sarcastic. And Brett is very heavily sarcastic. Let's just deal with opinion. So when obviously she spoke about the house situation, his reply was, I'm so irresponsible. And that was jab number one, right? Again, the defense is coming in because he feels like he's under attack. And this is one of the ways that he dissuades the attack. This is one of the ways that he makes himself feel better, so he doesn't feel like he's being beaten up, right? Sarcasm. It's a defense mechanism that he's using, yeah? And so that it's because I'm so irresponsible actually was a double shot, because it's actually towards her as well. So you're not responsible, that's why you ain't got a house, right? It can be contrived that way. It can be conceived that way. It can be perceived that way. So it actually was a double shot. It wasn't just to say, oh, I'm so irresponsible, sarcasm, but also it could be towards her as well. Like, you're irresponsible, that's why you ain't got a house right now.
Stupid equity. What was I thinking?
Now, fam, you understand? You make more than me, but you ain't got a house right now. And I always say this as well. Look, I get it. And here's the thing: the reason why she ain't got a house is, like people have probably put out there as well and said, it's because she isn't thinking about getting kids, which leads to that's 2 out of 3, not having kids and the housing situation. Big things. You know what I mean? So that they do need to be addressed. I think, again, then he made another point, and made another sarcastic comment by saying, oh, stupid equity, what was I thinking? And actually, the funny thing is that he actually jumped, at that moment, he jumped ahead of her without actually just having a discussion. He kind of jumped in there, stupid equity, Bro, she wasn't even saying that, bro. That is not the point she was making.
Now is not the time for the sarcasm.
But you're jumping now the gun to assert yourself in a situation because you feel like there's arrows coming for you. But no arrows have come for you. So why are you jumping ahead of time? You're trying to get in there before she gets you. And I guess as well, this... I think also as well, what's really the big thing here is that it's not just the housing, obviously, for Olivia. It's comfortability, okay? It speaks to, obviously, control. And this, I think, is where I believe relationships, a lot of people don't like to think of it, but a lot of us, especially if we haven't got a secure attachment as well, can really go into wanting to control narratives. Not that you're controlling, but you do things to wrestle control and power in the relationship to your favor, right? So this house situation now is a control situation, because obviously for her, she's like 40 minutes away from work. Nah. And then the excuse of, I gotta respond as quickly as possible. No, you don't. You just need to get to work.
What we're gonna do. As a nurse, my schedule can differ day to day. And so when you say that you wanna spend time with me and cook dinner with me, well, if I'm having to commute 30, 35 minutes.
You understand? Like, you just need to get to work, babe. Like, but I understand why it's comfortability for you. And giving up the house, as you said yourself, this is something that you loved. You like this house. It's got character. It's got this. It's got that. And you hope that he wouldn't leave. He would leave his house, come into your house, right? And I get the fact that you're living from moment to moment, right? You're living from moment to moment because you don't have a long-term objective, which is that you don't have kids. You're not thinking about having kids, right? So there's no long-term objective. So the house is actually more than just a house. It's comfortability, it's control, it's power. I need you to come to my space, you understand? So that you're in my space, because at that moment, you can do whatever you want. It's your house, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, it's a feeling of possession, right? And that can play a lot into relationships.
I discussed this when I first met you, that this was under the right circumstances, under healthy circumstances, a loving relationship.
Olivia never made it explicit that she wanted children, which is why we're here having arguments again, right? Aside of his sarcasm, but this is a huge flag. Even for me, I'm thinking to myself like, yo, how would you match with somebody who doesn't actually want to have kids? And when she says those words, I don't know if she's trying to comfort Brett in that respect. Brett ain't comfortable. Why is he not comfortable? Because at the end of the day, fam, this is something that I want to have, right? And you're not able to supply that in this particular situation, right? And it's something that, you know what? She said, obviously, my feelings may change. Wait, hold on. I'm banking on your feelings changing. What?
And maybe those feelings change, and maybe once you feel a certain way about somebody, that those feelings change.
But you also probably didn't see yourself getting married at first sight either.
No.
How can I bank on your feelings changing towards children? That's mad. It could easily be a case of you have children for me and feel resentful. Why do that? You're not in that space to have kids. You're not in that space to want to have kids. Don't be in my space. Like, the experts should not have put her and him together, because that is a huge thing for some people. Like, to want to have kids. Like, if someone told me they didn't want to have kids, I would look at them like, rah. Now, if I couldn't have kids, that's different. But if you're telling me I don't want to have kids, I'll be like, excuse me, we don't need to be here. We don't need to be here. Having kids is a preliminary question in any relationship. Before you even get to a relationship, asking like, do you want kids? No. All right, deuces. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not going to try and change your mind. Like, stay where you are. You feel what I'm saying? And I feel like that is a problem of the experts here. That is their fault, okay? And then they talked about PDA and affection. And I think in that particular thing, which was really interesting, because similar to Karen, that lack of PDA, the lack of ability to want to be loving, I think it goes on beyond I'm not great at it, and it goes on to there is something not quite right. Like, why are you so not so great with PDA? Like, not even just PDA, because it's not PDA is public, right? Displays of affection. But when you're in your own home, right? She's obviously not very touchy-feely, right? Because her words out of her mouth were, Brett is very touchy-feely, which that tells you that he's more touchy-feely than she is, right? Because all she could have said was, oh, Brett's really touchy-feely and so am I. But
Back away.
Can we try it? See what happens.
You touch me. Let's get closer.
There, yeah.
she says, no, Brett's really touchy-feely, right? And we see how she's affected by his touch when she's asked to move or get next to him, right? And then she makes a joke saying, obviously, don't touch me. But I will tell you, jokes have some levels of truth in it, right? And then obviously she moves over, okay, and then he puts his arm around her, and then his hand goes around her thigh. Now,
Well, and I mean, it's not because I feel like that's what should be happening.
I mean, you can read that in two different ways. Maybe it's too soon, especially if she doesn't do PDA. And you can also read it as this girl just doesn't want, like she said, I felt uncomfortable. She's not comfortable around Brett yet. Do you understand? Like, she's like, after all how many weeks now, she's not comfortable. Why? Because they've never really had the time to develop intimacy because of the sarcasm. The sarcasm. All too much sarcasm. You know what I mean? Sarcasm. I said that about 4 different ways, didn't I? You feel what I'm saying? And that is that shows you now how that can translate into even physical intimacy due to the fact that emotionally there's a lack of connectivity there, right? And so I said that obviously then it needs to be explored as to why she's not good with physical displays of affection, or why she doesn't like touching, or why she doesn't like that kind of stuff. And then she vehemently defended herself.
And last night we laid on this couch and chit-chatted for an hour and a half.
Nice.
We did. That's why I'm saying I'm kidding.
Couch talking isn't, hugging, touching, them kind of things, cuddles. Like, we spoke on the couch by your own admission for an hour and a half, right? So we didn't actually do touchy. We didn't do feely. We haven't even, and they haven't even had sex either, right? And that's, again, obviously she explains why, because you know what, she wants to feel those emotions before she goes into having sex, which is fine. I am not disagreeing with that. In fact, I agree with having some level of feeling and love towards the person that you're about to be intimate with. I think it screams louder that obviously there hasn't been any attempts towards that, and there's a key conversation in that as well. A very key conversation that happened. One of the key conversations that happened in between that was that it was said that Brett...
Once that she ever initiated a touch between us, not once.
Is it ever okay? Like right now, if he were to put his hand on you, would that be like, oh no?
No, it wouldn't make me cringe or like...
Brett said on one occasion that, listen, she's never initiated physical contact. That's a problem, number one. Number two, the issue around, obviously, the fact that rejection, okay? She said, obviously, look, you know what, if you try it, don't be afraid to try it, basically. If I reject you, basically, yeah?
There's a certain amount of perseverance that I'm putting into it. It's not always super receptive. And, normally that's the kind of thing that would shut you down because rejection sucks.
And obviously, for anybody who is in a relationship, why would I try to move to you, touch you, try to get intimate with you, and you reject it? Would I want to go again? And you don't try to catch a case, number one. You know what I'm saying? Number two, I'm respectful, so I understand I don't want to push you beyond your barriers. But if you're telling me that, you know what, you're open to me trying to make a move, but just be ready, I might reject you, you're not really open to the move. Let's just be honest. You're not ready for that move. Right? You're not ready for that move. You're not ready for sex. You're not ready for that physical intimacy going sexual, right? We're not even doing physical, so we're not going to get to sexual. But for the fact that, and I think Brett made a good point, I just hated the fact that he used certain words to describe what could have been done so simply. And for me, that is, I think to myself, when we're trying to communicate, we should always try to communicate on the level that a person can understand.
Permission and enthusiastic initiative are not the same thing.
Say what you feel.
That I just did.
And don't try to go above people's head and show that you know a lot of words or you're the smartest in the room. Because actually, the smartest person in the room can communicate on all levels. You're not the smartest person in the room then. Alright? And so the words that he used had to be interpreted by Dr. Viviana to give it onto Olivia. And the truth of the matter is this. You can be, you can say, I'm open to the situation, but you actually don't desire the situation. And that's completely different. And I think everybody wants to desire the situation. Why would I want to be in a relationship where the person doesn't desire me to have sex, or doesn't desire me to want to have sex with me? Rather, I'm open to the move if you're open to the move. That is so, one, unattractive. Two, that's scary. You know what I mean? Like, again, I'm not trying to catch a case. Do you get it? So I think that was a clear point that showed me, right, Olivia's just not in that space. It's as simple as that. Olivia is not in that space, but I don't think Brett's done enough to help her along that rate. And I think that's the difference between Brett and Miles. Brett's level of communication, the way he does it, is a sarcasm, is really a push away ability. And so it wants to keep arm's length almost to certain people. Whereas I think with Miles, there's a over genuine of niceness that can be pushing the person away if it's the wrong person. And so obviously, he says obviously he doesn't want to rush her, doesn't want to make a move before the time. And what was interesting, obviously, he said obviously she doesn't like sitting next to him, right? Which is really odd because obviously as well, again, this is a relationship, why would you not want to sit next to your partner? And we saw this earlier on in early episodes where there was distance between the two of them. Like when they sit on the couch, when they would sit out on the boat, like there was this distance, and there wasn't a connectivity there. And again, this may lead into the viewpoint that Olivia may be trying to add somebody to her life, not becoming one. Right? I'm not saying that's the whole entire case, but it could be that Olivia's trying to add to her life rather than merge. You understand? And adding to your life oftentimes gives you the power, okay? It's called an acquisition, not a merger, because what you're wanting is there to be, for you to have still control the dynamics and what we do, whilst obviously adding someone else to your life, right? And that's not how relationships work. They give and take. Some might say 50-50, some say 100-100. Whichever way, there is.
There's a certain amount of perseverance that I'm putting into it. It's not always super receptive. And, normally that's the kind of thing that would shut you down because rejection sucks.
Brett was making faces towards the end, and then he gave this speech, which, she got this smile that breaks through the clouds. And I said, listen, bruh, I'm not gonna lie to you, to me, that sounds hella fake. And I don't know if you're just trying to make it through the 8 weeks, but that sounds hella weak. Why? Because you've never said it in private, and now you're saying it to Dr. Viviana. And it was actually, this is not the first time, it's like the second time. When Dr. Cal came, he also said something like sweet as well. And I was like, bro, but all the sarcasm that you've been given, you're not allowing for much intimacy. So, bro, where does all this big boy appreciation of Olivia come from? Do you feel what I'm saying? And so for me, when I see that, I'm like, okay, that looks disingenuous. So I totally understand that Olivia couldn't believe what he was saying, because I don't believe what he's saying. The tone, the way he said it, the way he delivered it, everything just felt off. It felt like, the person was just doing too much. It felt like the person was really rehearsing their lines and saying it. All in all, I really believe that Brett and Olivia have got a lot of things that they've got to fix up. There's the housing, the kids, dealing with as well. And there's quite a few issues I think that need to be sorted out. His sarcasm is a problem. And I think even in part 2, when we actually delve into that as well, you can see that sarcasm is taking an absolute mick. Like, you need to know when to use it. There's time and season for everything underneath the sun. And if you don't know that, you're going to hurt the person that you're with and the individual that you're in a relationship with. So yeah, guys, make sure you like, share, subscribe, click on the bell button for notification of the uploads. We appreciate you. Stay locked, stay loaded. More love.